my name is Jaede Bayala, and I'm the assistant gallery manager here, and I'm joined with our fantastic exhibitions coordinator, Elise, in the back, who's filming this for us. And I'm here today with Downen, Robb Gann, and Christopher Leitch to host this amazing talk and be in this space, Keeper of Memories, a celebration of works by Gerry Trilling, and her works were generously provided by her husband, Howard Trilling, and pulled from Studios Inc.'s collection. So we invite you to enjoy and celebrate her legacy with us. Thank you. And if you would like to say anything.
Oh yeah, I just want to thank all people that came to hear it. It's really special to me to have an opportunity for artists that in the community, Gerry, to talk about the work. So I'm not going to do the talking. The purpose is not like a memorial kind of thing. They're going to talk, critique the work and talk about what they know about what she was doing and why she did what she did. You already introduced them, so I'll let them know. These are all people who knew Gerry well and worked with her over the years. Gallerists, fellow artists, and her studio, all of them.
Great. So I have a couple of questions to ask, and then we can open it up to others. So the first question that I want to pose to the panel is, in what ways has this exhibition impacted?
I can just bring it up. So I long suggested a retrospective of Gerry's work and recommended a couple galleries to connect with. Studios Inc. I love opened up their doors to host. Not only is it impactful for me that it's here because I used to work here. Gerry was a resident artist here for 3 years, and her works just went up exponentially in growth as she was here. And seeing all these pieces here, and there are certain works like I wasn't even aware of because Gerry's work continuously grew. There was no static moment within her career. So seeing these small wooden sculptures, these were works I didn't even know existed, and they're fantastic. And that is true from every step in Gerry's career, that her work, she focused on an area, she mastered it, and moved on, and they're always fantastic.
I think the impact of the show for me, having shared a studio with Gerry for 7 years, was that for me it was about seeing everything together. And that's so important. You know, if you've ever been to an artist retrospective, you get to see them in a way that you don't get to see them in maybe just a solo show or a group show where you're seeing 1 or 2 or 3 pieces. And I always love going to see retrospectives that cover the career of the artist's life from the very, very earliest incubation kind of works to their mature voice. And so for me, the exhibition has been extraordinarily meaningful because it's allowing me to see the work in a completely fresh and new way that I couldn't get in the studio by seeing the process behind the scenes or when the studio was being cleaned and organized, right? So I agree with Rob. One of the most delightful things is this table of sculptures that are so idiosyncratic and exploratory and experimental and fresh, even now. But I've never seen them presented in a sweet kind of dialogue with each other the way they are here.
I've been friends with Gerry's work for a long time, over 35 years. And to see this little taste of the work is a wonderful opportunity to relive all of those experiences with how this work swelled and contracted in her studio practice. And I knew her in 3 studios, down on 17th Street, where she was in the building next door to Professor Warren Prosser, and then here at Studios, and then over in Kansas City, Kansas. And the thing that amazed me most about this exhibit is how small it is, because at least this much work was happening in Gerry's head and from her hands at any given moment. These are very tame and safe for work examples of a group of things that grew out of the shoe and construction paintings. There were hundreds of dolls and shoes and figures and things glued together and broken apart, and 10,000 pounds of sequins, and jeweled and bedazzled objects that were just piled in the studio because she wasn't making these objects to perfect her craft. She couldn't explore the ideas quickly enough. And each of them was a phrase or a few words or a sentence or a translation, and she kept moving and moving and moving because she didn't want to let go of its tail. And I see that in the paintings and the shoe drawings and in these wonderful phalluses and the memory ponds. And it was so nice to be reminded that I've got to know that from a really amazing person for a year.
Thank you. And we sort of started to touch on this already, but what stood out to you about Gerry as an artist, and how was that sweet?
Yeah, Gerry loved people, and she loved connecting with people through dialogue. One of the things that I saw absolutely integral to her process of making art that stands out to me always is that there was a conversation happening. There was always some type of dialogue that was continuous, so whoever came into the studio, I was overhearing conversations where she was picking people's brains, and sometimes, you know, being the recipient of things that they would gift to her, whether that was a gourd or something that she found, or all of these mounds of remnants of yarn, or doilies or whatever, right? There was always a conversation around that. She was the best conversationalist ever, and one of the most amazing studio mates, because every time I went into the studio, and I know this is not supposed to be like a memorial type thing, but this is really critical to the process, right? I don't think that an artist can separate their process of creation from who they inherently are as a human being. And Gerry was a human being that was community minded and bringing all that dialogue into the process of making the work. So when I see the work, I'm always imagining, what was the story behind this? How did she make the choices? What was she talking to her friends about? You know, she was measuring her friends, getting their height, and making these portraits of them with these vertical hanging pieces. So I hope that answers your question, but the dialogue and the verbal crafting of the meaning through conversation is kind of the invisible part that's running through all of this work.
Yeah, 100% with what Jill said.
Yeah.
I mean, Gerry was a story collector.
Yeah.
That very much was one of her mediums. That she would collect these stories. She'd do several interviews. They'd always be conversational, but she'd find out 100 things about you in like an afternoon.
Yeah.
And then when she crafted these pieces, those stories were woven into them. And it's, you know, it's prolific throughout the whole body of work, that there is a story, there is a narrative behind each piece. And typically that came from one-on-one conversations.
I got to know Gerry as a person when she was a student, and I was on the staff at Kansas City Art Institute. And I got to know her especially through our friend China Marks. And she was always a bully, and she was always looking after you, and she wanted to make sure you ate, and that you were doing good, and you were comfortable, and everything was okay. And I got to know her as an artist a little bit later. And I saw her doing what a lot of people who studied at the Art Institute had to do, and that was to undo her education.
Absolutely.
And because she worked with some strong-minded people from Cranbrook Academy and Yale, and they had very fixed and seemingly rigid ideas about how you should proceed with the making of work, from idea through your hands to form. And that's a great teaching tool and method. And I know many women, especially, who got out of the school and were like, what just happened to me? I need some time to undo this. And she spent quite a bit of time as an artist shaking that off. Not because she didn't trust it or respect it or appreciate who she had worked with and what she had learned, but she was trying to remember who she was and why she had done that in the first place. And I especially see that with the shoe stuff and the doll stuff, which are images of femininity and stuff that's external and about silhouette and image and identity, because that's not where she worked from. She worked from a sense of who she was as a person, understanding her place in the world and in her culture and her cultural origin, and being a woman in a male-dominated field, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what I always found most interesting to talk with her about during studio visits, was not this thing, but where's that coming from? Why are you doing that? Why is it important for you to do that thing? Because she wasn't quoting theory. She wasn't writing a critique of herself. She was making the thing and exploring the idea and being the work and then moving on. And I think that was a lesson in a kind of integrity and honesty that I'm still trying to learn.
Thank you. And then, how did you see Gerry's practice evolve, whether it is through processes of materials, thoughts, patterns, and I know you mentioned that she was doing a lot of interviews. How are you seeing that sort of manifest within her practice when she was working?
Yes.
It's hard to hear.
Oh, sorry. Let me say it again. So how were you seeing Gerry's practice evolve?
I met Gerry when she was in residence at Studios Inc. here, and I first met her when she was doing the grids and the patterns that are hanging over here and then on the opposite side of this wall. And I watched her evolve from that pattern making process and thinking about the structure of things on a two-dimensional work, completely exploding into this mature three-dimensional work, which was definitely rooted in coming out of that, but evolved to such a unique and different level of clarity. Like, for example, this is kind of funny. When she was making these, a lot of the conversation about these crochet 3D forms was that they had come from the memory ponds, and she had described this scientific phenomenon, this biological phenomenon of lakes and ponds, and how these ponds have bird feces and different things that land, and then these organisms grow up from the edge of the pond. So the pond was this ecosystem that she was thinking about. So I had the privilege of seeing the source material that she was looking at in nature while she was making these seemingly abstract forms. But then on a fun, really technical side, she's like, how do I get this thing to stand up? And Jill, you're a sculptor, and I'm trying to figure out how to get these things in space. So sometimes there was just a lot of dialogue about the work, technically, how to get it to do what she was seeing it doing in her imagination. So we talked a lot about hanging mechanisms, we talked a lot about armatures and weighted structures underneath the form to keep the things from completely collapsing.
I'd also say, you know, Gerry's work did evolve. You can obviously tell through the breadth of each work that's displayed that there's a different synthesis that's happening, but in a way, a lot of it's circular too, to circle back to her roots in textile work. So she, through conversations with Howard and her children, I found out that Gerry worked a loom, like very early on in her career. And then when I knew her at Studios Inc., she was doing all these great patterns, but they were based off textile patterns, like quilt patterns. And you can see that in, echo throughout the work. And then we turn to these memory ponds. And again, there's so much built into each of these pieces. It's not just the tangible work that you're seeing, it's the concept that's built into it. So it's, you know, continuously evolving, but at the same time, she has that touch point of being a textile artist throughout.
Yeah, she was real concerned with things, making things. And I think that had to do with the need to realize interconnections in the world where we all are. The stuff that she was trying to get at, whatever that happened to be. She never figured it out and then made the illustration of it. She
Right.
was exploring the idea by making the thing. And I was thinking this morning in wee hours how her very early paintings were really rigid and were boxy and with text and constructed, and I think were really externalized in a way that her work subsequently wasn't. And I see this work, the stuff she was doing at the Art Institute, and then the stuff immediately after in those few years, wrestling with forms and ideas that may or may not have been native to her, that were important to her. It's like to be a woman. What it's like to not be afraid of color in a world that likes gray and black and white. And through this stuff, which is really messy, and she didn't mind a mess, arrived at this very analytical approach of what I noticed as weaving diagrams
Yes.
that we learned under Jane in the studio at Kansas City Art Institute. And it was a way to structure how she was processing this stuff. I mean, to be very blue about it, because you can see it's very rigid, mathematical, and geometric, and externalized. And she knew this wasn't the destination, but she knew she had to stay here at this station for a while she was on this journey. And I don't think she could have arrived at this intuitive, organic place with the texture drawings and the more robust combinations of color and texture in the later woven forms, and especially the memory ponds and the crochet sculptures, without having tested her analytical method in these works. Because she, like many people who go to art school, was she had a browbeat into her that she wasn't enough. She wasn't doing enough intellectually, that she wasn't doing enough with craft. She wasn't going to be good enough, and she wasn't going to make it, and she was just riding her husband's coattails, and she was some housewife who was doing shit as a hobby. And that was never, ever true with her. But that's what she heard a lot. And we talked about those things. And if you look at how this work has transitioned and evolved and manifested itself, you can see this is a very serious person who was wrestling with really profound elements of trying to understand her own existence and her own being in this world. And seeing that journey to here, who knows where this might have been leading, is really instructive, but also humbling to have participated in that, even in a minor way.
Thank you. And what do you hope that people remember about Gerry as an artist?
That she was an artist. She was a lot of things. She was a great mom and grandma. She was a really proud Jewish person. And she was a woman who was trying to respond to being in a culture that doesn't value women, the ways they should be right. And she was first and foremost someone with really big ideas that she was trying to navigate in the world in some way. And all of the things that she did were united and interdependent. These couldn't have happened if she wasn't a great Jewish mom, and if she wasn't a generous person and a great friend, and someone who would scold you when you needed to be scolded. I think she wasn't just one thing, and I think that's what made her So multifaceted.
I mean, we are literally sitting or standing in her memories right now.
Mhm.
All these works are a testament to her career as an artist, as a mother,
Mhm.
as a friend, as this pillar in the community that helps other communities that are around the periphery. She was so active, and if you look at these pieces, you know, they're a snapshot of Gerry's life, and she left that behind for all of us. So I agree with you. I mean, remember her as a great artist that she was, but also the advocate and the friend to all of us as well.
I'll always remember her as a creator who had a lot of courage all the way up until her passing, because I was seeing her fight the illness and not feeling well, but coming into the studio, whether she had her walking stick or whether she didn't have her walking stick, she was making this new body of work and talking about these new things right up until she couldn't do that anymore. And she was taking the work home and working at home, and Howard had talked about that. Yes.
Little ones.
Like sitting at home and doing it, and sometimes she would come back to the studio and grab a bunch of material and then go back. So I will always remember Gerry as this artist who never gave up, never stopped, pushed through discomfort and pain, and kept creating as much as she was just breathing in and out.
That's very true. Like the resilience is present, and Howard was just alluding to the fact there are the smaller creative pieces over there that she worked on until the end.
That was the new body of work she was making.
And this,
Yeah.
and so she's continuously thinking about what's next.
Yeah.
Even as you know that window is closing.
Yeah.
So I just love this.
Thank you. And my final question, something I've noticed being in this space where I think I've appreciated most is even artists who didn't know Gerry personally, her work speaks to so many different artists of disciplines and, you know, walks of life. And so what I want to ask finally is, what piece stands out to you the most and why is it speaking to you, especially having this background of knowing Gerry personally?
Yeah, there's a set of 3 that the Nerman Museum purchased, and I think maybe there were 5 originally, but they're kind of a hybrid between the memory ponds, which remain graphic on they're tactile, and yet they're graphic and they're wall hung, and then these fully blown 3-dimensional pieces that hang. The Nerman Museum bought a collection. You could tell.
They bought 3.
3.
And then the curator bought 1 for herself.
Right. They're about this big, and what those stand out in my memory for is because they look absolutely fresh, brand new, 2024, 2023, as if some hot new young art star just made them. If I didn't know Gerry and I was walking through a gallery in New York and I saw that, I'd be like, oh, who's this hot new young artist, right? Because that work was like now, like right now, in every manifestation of what it was. And I just think that's amazing, absolutely amazing.
I agree. I love those.
Those pieces are awesome.
They were called game boards, and they were shaped kind of like memory ponds in like very organic shapes, but they had nodules, so you always want to like touch it and like push the button, or like use it as a joystick,
Or the body part.
or the body part. Yeah, they're amazing. For me, there are a few pieces, especially in this collection. I love the tall grass. I've displayed these and I've had them exhibited in other galleries, and they're just amazing. With the bases, they create like this dance, right? You can put them on multi directions. They're called tall grass, and it was a compliment to the memory ponds. If you're all familiar with ponds and like the grass that grows up around them, they sway in the wind. So they have that dynamic, but also like they can be like this complete ballet of like these crocheted, like conceptual organic pieces. They're just terrific. I also really love that painting in the back that's got so many different mediums built in. The wooden hands, like for some reason, I just love those wooden hands. She was thinking about how the audience would approach that work, and just it really draws you in. toes, the hands. I didn't even notice that there was a shoe in that piece. So there's so many layers to it that I'm always discovering something new.
It's a 23-year-old.
Well, very selfish. I have really warm feelings for the work that she exhibited here at the studios in her final show. Animation.
That show was incredible.
It was amazing.
Really incredible.
And she was really worried about how to do it because she was stretching all these fabrics and moving beyond the hand-drawn image into a built kind of image that bridged this work with the idea of cultural memory imbued by the kind of textile she was using. And she wanted it to be serious, and she wanted it to be taken seriously for this work because the time she'd spent here was so enriching and rewarding and opening for her. And she had things sort of stacked around, and she was kind of playing it with some stuff in the back. And in the front of the gallery, she had some very well-behaved squares that she was trying to show like postage stamps. And it was just bored me senseless. And I looked in the back where she had just been playing around with sort of stacking a couple of them together and draping one with a piece of plastic so the translucence was challenging your access visually and physically to the collage of works. She was building some of these woven forms in 3 dimensions with these forms stretched on stretchers, and I was like, you gotta do that because that is unknown, uninteresting, and interesting, and unfamiliar, and challenging and questioning. And she was like, I could show that. Yes, you absolutely must show those things. And I think just having one person, maybe more than one person, said, yeah, that is really cool. I want to see more of that, helped her in that next step. It wasn't a last step, but I helped her install that show, and she was really getting in the swing of, oh no, it needs to be crazier, it needs to be more challenging, it needs to be more absurd. I was like, wow, let's make it as absurd as possible. And it became almost an installation of one of these in 3 dimensions, an immersive woven experience of memory and form and painting. And it was crucial to her because that was the final liberation, I think, from being tied to the right way to do some things and just doing things right. And it was a great show. It was a great show.
Yeah.
And she had drawings in it. She was very nervous about showing because they were with hand, texture, actual drawing tools. Gorgeous. And I loved being in the barn when that calf was born. It was really good.
Thank you for your answers, and I'd like to open it up now to the audience if you all had any questions.
I just want to remark in relation to what you were just saying, that final show, as I recall, I was very impacted by the words, by the family memories. That was so revealing as far as history and culture.
She thought material culture was the thing. She loved material culture that she would use with material that other people would accommodate everything. She would try to use it in her work.
But she thought including that text was kind of a cop-out, or that it was somehow not serious, or it wouldn't be high art enough. I was like, oh no, because you're not telling us what to think about the work, you're adding to the texture of the narrative that you're establishing. So it wasn't like posting an explanation as many artists of her teacher's generation might have done, present student. It was, here's more content. that helps these things be what they need.
I remember that show too, it was just really stunning, and also I loved the memories that had to do with her family members and the Holocaust. It was a really powerful show. And I'm remembering the translucent material that she used. I said, Gerry, what is that? And she said she got it from, what's the name of that famous fabric store in New York City, K&H or something?
Sure.
What is that? Yeah, she got it there, and I loved it so much. It's liquid vinyl that looks like animal skin or human skin, and it was really powerful. And I've actually used that some in my work. But I've known Gerry and Howard 39 years. She was my student at the Art Institute when I worked with Jane and Jason back in the 80s. You said you guys moved here in 86?
Moved in 86, and she went there, like in 88, 89, 90.
So I had her sometime in that period, and I don't remember those pieces over there at all because we were doing 22 by 30 pieces. But
The weaving?
yeah,
The
no,
weaving.
those are all handmade paper pieces. But she really fell in love with the process of handmade paper, and then I sold paper club. Also, I had Kansas City Paper Works, and I did purchase orders. I taught paper making at the Art Institute, and I became chair at Maplewood. So, she was started teaching summers. What was that summer camp?
Thunderbird, she would go up to
Thunderbird.
Minnesota every summer for about 10 years, and she would do a workshop for the kids.
For kids, and she always bought pulp
Yeah, she
for me in
bought-
5-gallon containers to take up there every summer. So, but yeah, I miss her terribly. I cried for probably 10 days when I learned of her passing. Rob actually contacted me because Howard spelled my name on it in an email. And I always stay with them when I came back, and they'd stay with me on their way through Santa Fe. I went to Santa Fe 10 years ago, so I just miss her terribly, and I'm happy I was able to fly in from Santa Fe 2 days ago and stay with Howard and see this retrospective. It's really wonderful and great like hearing it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Elise.
Thank you.
I have a question. Christopher, your comment about Gerry kind of being a cultural memory keeper. Her work almost documents the history of embroidery patterns, traditional tapestry patterns from Old England and Turkey. With her modern materials she has selected, how do you see her tying timelines together from a historical aspect to the modern materials she uses?
Well, I think that mirrors what we do in life. We carry memory with us for the products of our cultures. She really responded to the Buddhist idea of interdependent originations, that were the combinations of things perpetually coming into being. And I don't think she was literally trying to tell the story of here's my ancient culture and here's some plastic and they go together. She saw this stuff and she was like, I don't know. She just this kid and candy with color and texture, and the weirder the stuff was, the better it was. And she felt that way about people too. And I think being well educated and well traveled and well read and a deeply thoughtful person, she couldn't help but wonder what if. And that's where I think that emerges from people who share a studio with her can elaborate on it.
Yeah, one of the things we talked about a lot was material culture and her story of her family surviving the Holocaust and coming to the United States. And one of the things I learned from her was that when people are on the move, the things that they can take with them are fabric. That identify their culture, who they are, their communities, their country that they come from, and that historical lineage always shows up in whatever the fabric is. And whatever, that could be any type of fabric, clothing, but it could be something that would be in the house or something that was used, so patterns and colors and shapes, all the symbolism that those things carry. She felt an obligation, but also the freedom as an artist to expand on what material culture meant.
She did a lecture here with her show at Studio Zinc. And I remember some of those same things that you just described.
Yeah.
She elaborated on them on the lecture. It was amazing.
It was amazing.
Other people heard it.
That's one of the things she taught me.
Yeah.
I was not conscious of that, and maybe fiber artists are conscious of that, right? But that was not my arena, so I learned a lot from her.
Well, they came from her family's
It
professional
came from
background
family's
too.
professional
She kept
background.
talking about the sofa and the
Yes,
upholstery.
yes. The upholstery,
That was
upholstery,
the
upholstery.
keystone,
Yeah.
as the holder of a particular kind of memory, not because you lived on it only, but also because sofa upholstery is so what it is.
And I love that you said she went to these materials or these concepts like a kid's candy, because every time I walked into her studio, there's like a kid in a candy store. It's like walking into Willy Wonka's like chocolate factory.
Yeah, totally.
Just like
Yeah.
chaotic and crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell you the source of where these came from, so, like the whole idea of doing crochets.
Go ahead.
You know?
No, go ahead.
We went on a trip to Iceland, and we went to this one museum where it's actually was some person's house that made it into a museum. It had a tremendous amount of crochet work. She just fell in love with it. She came back and that was it.
Crochet.
For 7 or 8 years, that's what she did.
Yeah, yeah. With her little bandage on her wrist.
And the memory bonds were donated yarn, right?
All donated.
Yeah, that was the material culture thing.
Yeah.
It was from other people's memories.
Yeah.
Because they would always say, oh, I had in my basement all this yarn that I inherited from my grandmother and she died. I don't know what to do with it. And they gave it to her.
Yeah.
She was making it
They had to give a story too.
She
Which was
wasn't
fun.
shy.
For years, that's all she did was make it out of flour, because she was thinking she was keeping their memories alive. That
But
was
also it was someone's sweater, someone's grandma's.
Yeah.
Yeah, half-finished projects.
Well, she would also call you right away and go, I saw this yarn in your studio, and you don't look like you're using it. So and I keep looking for my yarn in here because she later called me and was like, you told me a story about that and I can't remember it, but I have to know it. I have to be reminded of that way.
And you know, that's another thing about social practice. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that term, social practice, but it's now a minor degree at the Kansas City Art Institute. It's your major degree, you need a minor in social practice. And I, have been watching social practice artists in the culture, and I know a little bit about it, but when I watched Gerry from a very intimate vantage point in the studio, collecting all the yarn and collecting all the stories, it influenced me and my couple projects, and it helped me see that you could access the community and co-create with them, and therefore the artwork becomes a vehicle of a broader dialogue, not a monologue with your own emotions and your own intellectual thoughts in your private studio space.
Which is a continuation.
So I think of her going from painting to drawing, weaving, painting, drawing, paper making, sculpture, printmaking, and then boom, social practice at the end, which is a great way to think about her life.
But she was a social practitioner all along.
All along, right.
We first connected with her early in our relationship because we started an oral history project. And it was exploring oral histories in the LGBTQ community in Kansas City, and she had to help because she was already working with LGBTQ kids through passages and understood challenges and threats and needs, and wanted to help preserve stories about these communities because she knew young people would benefit from knowing who came before. And that comes directly from her growing up in a Jewish family, because Jewish families are about history and tradition and remembering and telling stories and persevering. And she was able finally, I think, to merge her social being and her investment in the idea of community with things that manifested that.
Right. Beautiful.
I have a question for Howard. Howard, how Gerry was also, beyond being a tremendous artist, she was a wonderful mother. How did you see the influence for her passion for being a creator and an artist influence raising your children throughout the years?
You know, as an artist, it was much more expansive than just making pieces of art. To her, it was all the same. She was cooking, baking, planting. You know, it was all the same to her. She would, when the kids were young, she would bake bread for them every day. They never bought store-bought bread. That was really amazing. That's how so she brought the art into the house.
Yeah, I wanted to say the same thing. She was an artist in the kitchen. She made the best kosher chicken I've ever had in my life. It was just
She won baking gardens.
and it was amazing, and always had beautiful gardens around her home. I knew the children, I got to meet the children too, back in the 80s. They're all grown with kids, and all these Jerry and all these grandkids, and beautiful children. So, yeah, definitely. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah.
Any final questions?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you to all our panelists.
Beautiful, beautiful thoughts on Gerry's work.
Thank you for all the coming, and it was great what you guys talked about.
Yeah.
Really
Really great.
brought out some good points I never think about.
Okay, well, please enjoy some food and or coffee, orange juice, and look around the space.
And how many, if we see pieces in our collection,